Moving on to the NFL, the Philadelphia Eagles looks like they finally had a complete game as a team this year, and they're now 5-2 as they handily defeated the Cincinnati Bengals. This is a team that's really a sneaky 5-2 because overall, you listen to Eagles fans, they're very critical of the team, and there is some truth. There's a lot of truth to it. There are problems with the team for sure, but at the end of the season last year, there were a lot of problems with the team too, and they were actively losing. So the fact that they are winning, that's a good sign, right? The addition of Saquon has been huge. He's been great for them. Jalen Hurts had a really accurate game today. 80% of his passes were completed, and he had a really high QB rating as well. So it was a great game from Jalen Hurts, who has been quite turnover prone, but I believe now it's been 3 straight games without a turnover. So that's been great for them because that was his biggest issue at the start of the year and at the end of last year was turnovers, because you can't execute the offense the same way. You can't get it to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith if you're throwing the ball to the quarterback, right, and throwing a pick. So for the Eagles, they've just got to be safe with their offense, and they've got a lot of talent on that roster. If they can just limit turnovers, and that defense has kind of turned their corner as well, they're looking a lot better. I think the Eagles have a lot of bright signs moving forward, and they can be a very good team in the NFC. If they're able to put it all together, it's just kind of been an issue, whether it's been coaching or the players themselves. It's just kind of been an issue of putting it all together. But right now, this was a convincing win against the Cincinnati Bengals. And obviously, the Bengals haven't got off to a great start to the year. They're 3-5, I believe it is now. However, they were playing a lot better the last couple weeks. And for the Eagles to get a win over the Bengals, that's real good for them. And I think it's a positive and very bright sign moving forward for the Philadelphia Eagles season. And it's just a lot to build on, because for the Eagles, especially last year, this was a team that collapsed during the second half of the season. But now they look like a team that's going to just now be getting things going in the second half. And so that bodes real well for the playoff chances. Not just playoff chances, but chances to do well in the playoffs. I think the Philadelphia Eagles, this win right here kind of proves that they are a team that can compete out in the NFC. I've been saying it all year. Their biggest enemy is themselves, but it looks like they're putting it all together teams. Now. The Cleveland Browns defeated the Baltimore Ravens, led by Jameis Winston. And Winston's just a fun player, man. I love rooting for him, because no matter what, he's going to go out there and he's going to air that football out. And he could throw 5 picks. He could throw 5 touchdowns. It doesn't matter. He's going to play with the same confidence anyways. And he's not afraid of a team that has championship aspirations like the Baltimore Ravens. For the Ravens, I think this is just kind of a loss that you can't chalk up too much to, because you don't have much film on Winston. How are you really going to properly prepare for him? I don't think there's major warning flags for the Baltimore Ravens. It's a bad loss, sure. You don't want to lose to the now 2-6 Cleveland Browns, but I think Baltimore will be fine in the long run. Derrick Henry didn't have the best game, but I think that's going to come back. He's been great this year, and that's going to continue. But for the Browns, you've arguably had three quarterbacks come in and play better than Deshaun Watson now. It was Baker. Obviously, when you got Deshaun, you had to get rid of Baker, but you made the decision in the first place to go with Deshaun over Baker and trade for Deshaun. And then you had Joe Flacco, who had a great stretch at the end of last year, and now Jameis Winston was lighting it up. But you've just roped yourselves into paying him so much more money. It's just this fully guaranteed contract, because he didn't want to go to Cleveland. So you give him a fully guaranteed contract so that he'll even, consider it for 5 years, $224 million, whatever it was. And now you've just roped yourself into that contract, fully guaranteed, and you can't do much to get yourself out of it. But guess what? Jameis Winston is a lot better NFL quarterback in 2024 than Deshaun Watson is, and I have no doubt in my mind about that. Especially not just for the production on the field, but for what he can bring to your locker room. Because Deshaun Watson, regardless of how his teammates might feel about him, he attracts a lot of negative press, and that's rightfully so, right? And it's not just for his play, it's for the off-the-field stuff as well. But Jameis, he's the guy that the locker room can really rally around, and the Cleveland Browns fans can really rally around. And so having Jameis be able to be a proper leader and someone that teammates can really show up and shout out for, that's huge. So it's not just a great production Jameis had this game. I think he's the guy that the guys like Jerry Jeudy, guys like David Njoku, who are going to be his top receiving threats, they can really go out there and be motivated to perform for Jameis Winston compared to how they would be with all the negative press surrounding Deshaun Watson. So I think for the Browns, you're going to have to stick with Deshaun Watson realistically. However, Jameis Winston has absolutely proven himself just in 1 week, go out and beat the Baltimore Ravens and having a great game. Jameis has proven himself to still be a good NFL quarterback, and I have no doubt in my mind that he is a better quarterback than Deshaun Watson. However, the Cleveland Browns, unfortunately, are probably going to have to stick with great recently. That's Russell Wilson. The Pittsburgh Steelers defeated the New York Giants in what was a fairly predictable Monday Night Football game, but through 2 weeks, Russell Wilson looks like a really good quarterback for the Steelers, and this was a guy whose kind of starting quarterback job was in question because Justin Fields, the Steelers, while Fields didn't have the best production, the Steelers were winning, and you kind of didn't want to mess up that momentum. But Wilson slotted right in and got the offense moving more than Fields really did. He completed 20 of 28 passes a game, 278 yards, 1 passing touchdown. And the week before, he was probably even better. So for this Pittsburgh Steelers team, it was really a question of not necessarily is Fields significantly better than Russell Wilson, but did you want to mess up the momentum and the winning that Fields had created for this team? Because Fields, while he didn't wow you, he did just enough to win. But with Russell Wilson, the way he's been playing to start this year, I think he can do more than just enough to win. I think he can kind of lead you to some wins. And that's not really what we saw over in Denver. But to start off his Pittsburgh tenure, Russell Wilson's been really great. And it seems like he's kind of turned back time a little bit because, once again, that Denver tenure, it was really bad for him. But Pittsburgh has looked great for him. He just needed a fresh start. Russell Wilson, we saw it for so many years in Seattle, and your play doesn't just fall off that drastically. I think it was just more of a case of the situation around Russell Wilson. There were a lot of factors that led to his play significantly declining. But I think over in Pittsburgh with the Steelers, Russell Wilson can have a great year, and he just needed to change the scenery. And he's got that now. And I think I want to talk about Drake May of the New England Patriots, who just defeated the New York Jets, a severely underperforming Jets team. And May left this game with a concussion. But before that, his first 2 games that he really got to play in his rookie year, they were great. He had multiple touchdowns in both of them, as well as throwing for 240 or more yards in both. And throughout those 2 weeks, he looked like pretty much the lone bright spot for a Patriots team that really doesn't have much to look forward to and just doesn't have a lot going for them. You've got Ramondre Stevenson, who's been a solid running back, if inconsistent. But Drake May has really been the takeaway for the entire season for the New England Patriots. And this was a guy who originally they kind of thought to sit behind Jacoby Brissett and let him learn, because May was kind of seen as more of a raw prospect coming out of UNC, but he's been off to a great start. He looks more polished than a lot of guys that spent a lot of time in college. Someone like Bo Nix, comes to mind. So for Drake May, it's just wishing him a speedy recovery. I think Jacoby Brissett can be a serviceable bridge quarterback, but from what we've seen from Drake May, he looks ready to play now. And obviously the Patriots aren't going anywhere, so you don't want to rush him back. But I'd love to see more of Drake May. He looks like a really good quarterback for the Patriots. And really the answer for them that they haven't had since Tom Brady had that one season and Mac Jones playing pretty good. And after that, he just kind of fell off a cliff. But for Drake May, I think there's been a lot of positives to take away from not the Jets game because he left early with a concussion, but before that, the 2 games previous to that, there were a lot of positives to take away, and he looks like he can be the quarterback of the future for the Washington versus Chicago game. And this one was hyped up as, the Caleb Williams versus Jane Daniels battle. And ultimately, Jane Daniels had a lot more productive day, but it really didn't lead to much scoring for either offense. And it had a crazy ending, too. Jane Daniels threw up the Hail Mary, and it got tipped by the Bears defensive back to the end zone for a Washington receiver. And it was a touchdown, and it was a game winner for the Washington Commanders. And then after the game, there was a video that started surfacing of that Bears defensive back mocking fans prior to the play. And this was the one who had tipped that ball to the Commanders receiver. And there's not a lot to take away here. Jane Daniels has had a great rookie year so far. And obviously, that Bears defensive back kind of made a fool of himself, for sure. And you just don't want to talk too much before the play is over because, home Bears aren't always that successful, right? They're notably not that successful. It's just kind of a last-ditch effort to go out and win a game. But sometimes they can be. It's not a 0% chance. There's a little bit of hope with them, and Washington came out on the other side with a victory as a result of it. So you never want to talk before the play is over. And for that Bears defensive back, he came out and said, it's just kind of taking lessons from it, and he's going to move on and be better. And that's what you got to do. You got to be able to respond to the negative criticism that's going to come from this. You got to respond to it's really more unlucky than anything, just kind of tip it, and it goes to the Washington receiver. But you can't have it because it led to the loss for Chicago. So you just got to move on from this, and you got to learn from it, learn from your mistakes, and hopefully it's a bright future for the Bears DB. But we know who does have a bright future, and that is Jaden Daniels. He's been great to start off this year. And, the first half of the year, it's been amazing to see Washington is number one in that division. And that's kind of surprising. This is a team that was kind of looked at as more of a bottom feeder, but they are absolutely not that. They are legit, and Jaden Daniels is going to be a great NFL quarterback for many, many years to come.